Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Sports Talk with Broads. We are broadcasting live from the Manscaped Man Cave. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BROD at manscaped.com. It's time to check in on the Philadelphia 76ers and this head coaching debacle. Keith Smith of Yahoo Sports tweeted out today something that was going around the Twitter sphere. And ironically enough, on Wednesdays, Keith Smith joins Mike Gill and myself on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. So we were able to ask him questions about what the hell is going on and his tweet. So what he put out there was this. Starting to hear a lot of buzz that the Philadelphia 76ers are letting teams know that they are open to trade talks if they hire Mike DAntoni to be their next head coach. Philadelphia realizes that current roster with all the bigs isn't built to be a successful D'Antoni team. Well, that is very true. If you look at his style, all these big men, it doesn't make a lot of sense for his philosophy. But I still look at this front office and realistically the ownership group. The ownership group is a monster problem. And we were informed that there would be some changes when it comes to the front office, and we haven't heard a damn thing. We heard that Elton Brand was going to be in control of certain decisions. I don't believe them. I don't believe him. That was a PR stunt, in my opinion. I think Joshua Harris has his feet up laughing, thinking that he has all of us brainwashed and that we think now that Elton Brand is this decision maker. Those guys up top love D'Antoni. They love him. And out of nowhere, he's the favorite to land the job. Why? Because Elton Brand really wanted him? No, it's because the ownership group really wants to hire him. And you're not going to be successful when these people up top are making the decisions. It's just reality. This organization is a mess. I don't trust them one bit. I've been very vocal about how I'm patient with Ben Simmons. I think Ben Simmons at year 27, 28, 29, when he's in that age, he's going to be a dominating force. I'm cool with being patient. I could be frustrated with him. I could yell at him and demand more out of his game, but ultimately, I think when you talk about the prime of an NBA career, he's going to be an X factor. But I don't think this organization goes anywhere if the guys that are making basketball decisions are Joshua Harris and David Blitzer and everybody up top that's involved with the ownership. So that is what is troublesome to me more than anything else. More than a head coach, more than having stars. Obviously, you need stars to win in this league, but I'm telling you, there is an issue when you look at the ones all the way at the top, and it's concerning me. Now, we also had Keith Pompey on of the Inquirer, and he mentioned that it looks like they're going in a direction of maybe hiring a president of basketball operations. Now, in theory, that sounds good, right? In theory, you would love to have somebody in that position. But let's dive a little deeper. Let's think about this just a little bit more. Who's hiring that individual? It goes right back to Joshua Harris. Okay? So if he's hiring that person, what's he doing? Is he just a puppet? Is he just a puppet for what the top guys want to do? And if that's the case, then it doesn't mean anything. To me, it seems all like a PR stunt. This ownership group cares about money. And that is a big part of what owners care about. But they really care about the money more so than winning. They want to build their own stadium, right? They want to try and build their own stadium. Apparently that got shut down. It's a nightmare with these individuals that own the Sixers. And until they go anywhere, which sadly you can't force them out of town, you're going to be struggling with a mess, with a big, big slop of crap all the way through their ownership regime. They haven't been good. They have not been good. And you know what? They put together this great philosophy. Let's get Sam Hinkie in here. Let's do what we need to do. Let's tank. Let's get a lot of picks. When they went down that road, I supported it. But when they allowed the NBA to step in and get rid of Sam Hinkie, they put their hands up to the NBA and said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We'll do what you want. Nope, that wasn't the right call. You got to be a little bit more firm than that. You got to be stronger than that. That is where my focus is moving forward with this franchise. I have zero faith, literally zero faith in them. And when you think about an organization and a franchise, if you don't have faith in the ones that are the owners, the ones that control and oversee everything, how is it possible to succeed? All right, so let's get back to this Keith Smith tweet. If Mike DAntoni is hired, they're open to trade talks. They should be open to trade talks to begin with, right? Isn't that obvious? That they should be open to trading Al Horford, Tobias Harris? It's interesting, the wording, because when you hear that, you think, Joel Embiid, he's a big man. He could probably utilize Ben Simmons in his offense if you have shooters around him, because he likes to pop the three, pop the three, pop the three. He likes to go so small to pop threes that he's got Robert Covington as his starting five in the postseason, and ultimately, we saw how that finished, right? So you would think that working with Ben Simmons is something he can do. Now, one of his quotes was, "I don't think there would be any desire to move on from Simmons or Embiid," when asked about some of these pieces that could be on the table with these trade talks if DAntoni is hired. He says more like a Horford, a Harris, a Richardson. Okay, well, my counter to that is it shouldn't matter who the hell is the coach. I don't care if it's Ty Lue. I don't care. Well, I was going to say Billy Donovan, but he's not available anymore, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I don't care who is involved when they are the coach. They got to make some moves. And if it costs a Matisse Thybulle, then so be it. And it's going to. It's not going to be that easy to move on from this. These contracts are miserable. Nobody wants to even sniff these contracts. It's going to take a lot to get them off the books. But if it costs you a defensive player in Matisse Thybulle who's exciting, who is a pest, who has quick hands, you might have to do it to break up what you put in place for this team, because this team is going nowhere if they stay true to what they put together this season. I'm out on Josh Richardson. He's a bum. He's not that good. He's just okay. I'd easily move on from him. It might cost you someone else, though. And I think about Zhaire Smith. There's no value in Zhaire Smith. There's no value in Furkan Korkmaz, Norvel Pell. I'm just rolling through their bench pieces. Might have to throw some draft picks in there. I'm doing whatever it takes to get rid of, specifically Al Horford. Because Tobias Harris, he's overpaid, and he's just a guy. He's just an average player. We saw that last year. But he fits. He fits an identity with Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. A stretch four, he can work there. Now, he's not your greatest in the world. He's not terrible either. He's just grossly overpaid. He's not a max-type player. But he can still hit shots and be an effective stretch four in this league with somebody like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Excuse me. Look at me. I'm just burping like this. Jeez, how unprofessional. I don't think I've ever done that before. I just got my stir fry coming up while I'm spit. See, that's what happens. I think it just senses, my body's just sensing that I'm speaking about the Philadelphia 76ers, and I want to throw up thinking about Josh Harris and David Blitzer. I can't get them out of my mind. I don't think that this organization will ever succeed if they are the ones that are making basketball decisions. They're not basketball people. They're just individuals with a lot of money that like to buy teams and invest in companies and things of that nature. They just like to be involved in the sports world. But they are not the correct people to assess basketball stuff. It's just not right. Speaking of basketball, though, phenomenal playoff games going on right now. And I've had a little bit of help, I'm not going to lie, when it comes to sports betting. BetQL gives you all the analytics you need. It shows you where the sharp money is going, which is the professional sports betting money. And I'm just following them at this point. I go on the app, and you can use promo code BRODES20 for 20% off of your first subscription. And you get all this information, trends, Follow the trends. Follow the sharp money. But I'm at the point now where I'm just following the sharp money. I went against it a couple times because I thought there's no way. Like, for example, the Eagles. There's no way the Eagles lose. All the professional bettors hitting the Rams. I said, there's no way. Went against them, lost. So now I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to do what they say. And I am cashing in left and right. I'm paying the bills with ease. You have to check them out. Their information is down below in the description. Let's get to Billy Donovan. Do you think it's weird that Billy Donovan... Now, I don't know how much the Sixers actually talked to him. I don't know what an interview was like. I don't know if they even really had an interview. I don't know if they had phone calls. I don't know where they stood on Billy Donovan. I would imagine, though, that they were talking to him and at least having some sort of communication back and forth. I'm not 100% sure if it's set and it was confirmed that they did have a face-to-face meeting or anything of that nature. But I would imagine that the conversation was had some way or sometime down the road. And if they didn't, then shame on them as an organization. Would that surprise me? Probably not. My point is, though, you look at the Bulls and you look at the Sixers, and you pick the Bulls. Even if the Sixers and Billy Donovan never communicated to a full, entire degree, do you pick up the phone and go, yo, Philadelphia, look, I got this offer on the table, but I look at Ben, and I look at Joel, and I look at this team, and they're in a much better position to go win. You would think, right? But Chicago's the way he goes. Now, Keith Smith brought up an excellent point. When it comes to job stability, you have more time in Chicago. You're in a different mindset. Coming into Philadelphia, it's you better win now or you're going to get run out of town, and there's a ton of pressure. This hiring is so big. It's huge for this franchise. This really shows where this team is headed and if the process worked. This coaching hire, these next moves, this offseason is insanely gigantic to see where this all heads. We've been talking about it for years. Let's tank Sam Hinkie. You got your 2 stars. Did the process work if you don't win a championship? Yada, yada, yada. Well, guess what? This offseason, the next moves, this new hire, and whatever, if they even do anything in the front office, whatever happens there, that will all lead us down the road that we need to go down so we have the proper information that we need. Will the process succeed? Did the process work? Whoever's coming in here, though, ton of pressure. And right now, if you ask me, who do you feel is the right hire? I don't really know if there is one. No one really pops. Everyone wants Greg Popovich. Everyone wants Eric Spoelstra and all these coaches in the league. Brad Stevens. Those type of coaches really aren't available. There's only a handful of NBA coaches that make a monster difference to what an NBA coach can actually do. At some point, they tap out. But in terms of where they tap out, there's only a handful of coaches that make a monster impact in their role. And I've been saying that for quite some time. And that's why it seems everyone who was such a Brett Brown hater, which I agree it was the time for him to leave, but everybody said he stinks, he sucks, get him out, he's pathetic, he's awful. All of them are underwhelmed with every possible name that the Sixers have talked to and pretty underwhelmed with everybody available. Well, that's weird. Isn't that kind of interesting how that works out? Just saying. Just saying. I think I lean Ty Lue over DAntoni. I'm not sure. Look, I understand that this league is all about shooting threes, and you want this aggressive popping threes. The Houston Rockets failed. And if the Houston Rockets are failing with that, I don't expect that this team and this roster is going to be able to execute some unbelievable game plan where you're just popping threes all the time, especially with a big man, a big center like Joel Embiid. You thought Brett Brown popped a lot of threes? No, he didn't. It was just around the league average. He was in the average with everybody else. Yeah, let me see that happen with DAntoni. Let me see the reaction to DAntoni when he ends up having Joel Embiid by the perimeter shooting a bunch of threes. And it's funny, I see Jokic, right? And he's playing in the NBA playoffs. He's by the perimeter a lot. He's always around the perimeter. Nobody argues about that. Now, he's way more savvy. He's got phenomenal skill sets that Joel Embiid doesn't have when it comes to passing the basketball, when it comes to facilitating an offense. It's two different playing styles. If you go down the road to DAntoni, guess what? He's probably going to be hanging around the perimeter way more than you would like. I think I lean towards Ty Lue. When you do a lot of digesting and you dive into his role with the Cleveland Cavaliers when they won the championship, he was harder on LeBron James than you think. He was. He was way harder than I ever thought he really was during the actual run. And he did win a championship. While I obviously think LeBron James had so much to do with that, just being on the sidelines in those type of atmospheres, it says a lot. You've experienced those moments. People want to associate the whole Allen Iverson thing. How can this guy be the coach after Allen Iverson? We talk about that moment all the time. So be it. So be it. And just to bring up the people that value the head coach more than me, Ty Lue won an NBA championship, and you go, who cares? Huh. So NBA coaching has so much to do with winning championships, and I'm not saying they don't have anything to do with it. I just think people overvalue it. So they have so much to do with it, yet you got a guy who's available in Ty Lue, and I don't know if I really like him. I don't know if he's the guy. All right, well, which one is it? Which one is it? Do I think they're going to move on from Joel Embiid because of DAntoni? No, I don't. I don't think so at all. It was pretty clear when we had Keith Smith on that he alluded to the Tobiases, the Al Horfords, the Josh Richardsons, that type of move. And the reason why I don't think that this organization would move on from a Joel Embiid or a Ben Simmons is, well, because I talked about this ownership group, didn't I? They care about jersey sales. They care about selling out the arena. They care about all the other avenues way more than they care about actually putting together a product that really, really is the best that it possibly can be. They obviously want the team to do well because when the team does well, that's when people come to the stadium. That's when individuals do buy the tickets, and they do buy billions of beers and food, and that's where they make their money. So to an extent, the team does need to be good, but it's not their number one priority, and that's where I think you have an abysmal ownership group that I have zero trust in to be able to get this thing done. I don't think that they move on from Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons at this time. If I had to choose, it's pretty simple for me. It's Joel Embiid that goes. I'm not this guy who believes in the center at 2020. You know, it's 2020. This is a different style of basketball. Jokic, a different version. Joel Embiid has a different skill set that I don't think can really, really win you an NBA title. And that's just me saying, if you had to move on from one. And I know that conversation's not going anywhere. I know we talk about that literally, it seems, whether every offseason or even during the season when someone has a big game and someone has a bad game. And then the following night, the other person has a big game, and then the other person who had a good game the night before has a bad night. And then you go, oh, they can't work together. I don't know if it's necessarily about them working together or not working together. I think it literally just has to do with the fact that it's a different style of basketball that's being ran in this era. Doesn't mean Joel Embiid can't dominate games. It doesn't mean that. It's just a different beast when the playoffs come around, and I don't know. I just don't see Joel Embiid as that big-time closer guy that you need. And he is your dominant force. But I can't trust our dominating force in big moments. And I haven't seen the growth in those moments. Ben Simmons, different situation. Because he's not necessarily that go-to guy. He can help create for you to get the ball to your go-to guy, which is very important, and you see LeBron James do it all the time. I would like for Ben Simmons to maybe have that motor if he gets better at his free throw so he can be the guy that goes to the rim hard, gets fouled, and then goes, I'm going to make these free throws. He's not that guy now, but Joel Embiid is, let me get the ball, let me get that big bucket-type center, and that really hasn't been beneficial. And it might have to do with, well, the way that he plays and with the way the game is played. But only time will tell. I don't want to get rid of either of them, to be clear. I'm just throwing out the crazy hypothetical that we find ourselves getting sucked down pretty much every single year. Now, this episode is also sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power, and with over 20 years of experience in the solar industry, they are home to your solar experts in both residential and commercial projects. They are dedicated to making sure your project is completed easily and properly by using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. Their solar program helps eliminate your electric bill completely. $0 electric bills. Their information is down below. It's definitely a wild time for the Sixers. It's a weird spot because over the last handful of seasons, we were brainwashed into thinking that this team had an NBA Finals type run, and at this point, I don't think that I can go down that road to enter the season. I know Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, in theory, should give you a shot to be in a fighter's chance every single year and all of that, but I just thought last year was such a ridiculous joke, and there's so many moving pieces, and there's so much mentally going on in that locker room. Unless there's some major changes to the roster that would really convince me otherwise, I can't have this optimistic view heading in. I would like Tyler DAntoni. It seems it's going to be DAntoni. Does that really get me juiced up? No. Not with this roster. And in general, not really at all. Could you imagine, though, if one of the guys they did move on from, if we were all shocked, right? Imagine if we were all stunned and we couldn't believe it because Joel Embiid was traded because DAntoni's your coach. Could you imagine changing your franchise around for DAntoni? Could you really imagine that? Making that big of a move because of a head coach like that? This isn't Popovich. If Popovich came here and said, I demand to get rid of one guy, you might go, okay, I mean, I'm not that supportive of it, but okay, it's Greg Popovich. Maybe he knows what he's doing. This guy, come on. And I just don't think it's a reality based off of the Benjamins. It's all about the Benjamins to this greedy ownership group that has the New Jersey Devils that was looking into the New York Mets before that failed. I'm pretty sure they got a little bit into the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. I'm going to look up exactly who else. There's an English Premier League that they are a part of too. Joshua Harris. Nope, not the pastor. Owns what teams? Here we go. Choo-choo-choo. Don't know what choo-choo-choo is, and I don't think I've ever said that in my life. The New Jersey Devils, the 76ers, 18% stake in Crystal Palace of the English Premier League. I could have sworn he had something to do with the Steelers. Why not? Steelers. Joshua Harris is a running back who is currently a free agent who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here we go. Joshua Harris, David Blitzer buys $140 million Steelers stake, June 15th, 2020. These guys are frauds. If you wanted the moral of the story, okay, you want the moral of the story here? I'm pissed off. I'm really angry that, in my opinion, I'm convinced that they are still running the show. And when they run the show, you don't succeed. And Elton Brand spoke and said, I'm going to be doing this and I'm going to be doing that. I'm not buying it. I'm really not buying it. I think it's a PR stunt. This team as a whole has been through so many PR stunts. It's unbelievable. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. I know plenty of other organizations are ran very poorly in sports, but seeing it firsthand, it blows my mind. Because before the shutdown happened, I was covering the Sixers for 97.3 ESPN. I went to every game. I heard all the pregame, postgame press conferences from the head coach and Brett Brown to all the players, and I just saw how it was all ran. It's a mess. It's a mess, and when it's ran that way to that level where it was, that means above everybody else, it's the same way. It's one big snowball effect in an organization, in a business. If you see one level failing, if you see one section failing, there's a reason for that. And then you got to look above and look above and look above. Come on. I'm over it. I really am. But it's not like you can run them out of town. It's not Matt Klentak. It's not. It's not Gabe Kapler. It's not Brett Brown. You can't just run them out. They have the power. And until that changes, I don't really feel optimistic about this team. They're the ones making the decisions up there, in my opinion. I'm convinced. I knew they were before. You know, Elton Brand was in the position of Elton Brand of the GM. You know, he was in the position of the GM. But when you have Scott O'Neil still in there, who the hell is Scott O'Neil? Why is he the one that deserves that? Those are the type of individuals that need to be gone. Out of this damn city forever. Never want to see them again ever. So I'm sure there's going to be news surrounding this coaching hire as the days go on. It does seem to be intensifying, though, that it is Mike DAntoni. We'll wait till it's confirmed, and maybe we'll all be shocked and they go in another direction. I thought Billy Donovan had a fighter's chance. If you ask me, between the three, DAntoni, Donovan, Lou, I would have still probably said Lou. I just think that for what a coach is worth, he's been on the sidelines during a playoff run. And I dove deeper into what he did during that run. And I saw that, you know, you guys talk about accountability. All these people that are obsessed with accountability, so obsessed with it. He held LeBron James accountable. Did he not? Sure he did. And it's funny. Stan Van Gundy said this on a broadcast during an NBA game in the bubble. Accountability and culture. You know where it's built from? The culture of a team. People want to talk about the coach, and I think that they have a percentage of the culture in play. They do set a percentage of the culture, but it comes from your superstars. And I couldn't agree more. It comes down to your superstars who set the culture. That's what it's all about. And that's when you look at Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and you go, all right, well, is Ben Simmons ready yet to be that guy? Probably not. Is Joel Embiid entering that age bracket? Yes, he is. But he's missing something, in my opinion. Joel Embiid is missing something to me. His raw natural talent is there. I'm not denying that. I see it. I see when he goes for 40 and grabs 20 rebounds, but that's regular season stuff. And I've seen him have dominant games in the postseason. I'm not acting like he hasn't. He's just missing something, in my opinion. And I don't know if there's enough time based off of his body breaking down, based off of by the time he learns it and puts it all together, he started playing basketball so deep in his career, in his age, in his life, that I just don't know if there's enough time for him to grasp and develop it as quickly as we need him to. Because if he would grasp it quicker, we'd already start to see that implemented into his game. I'm not a Joel Embiid hater. I actually enjoy him. I just look at the style of play in 2020. And I don't want to hear, well, Ben Simmons doesn't shoot and it's 2020. That's correct. But he facilitates, and he led the league in three-point assists on a team that has no three-point shooting. That stinks. That's embarrassing. Really, the team that we just had, it was embarrassing. They stunk out loud. And he led the league in three-point assists. So Ben Simmons, he works in this era, without a doubt. That's when the roster construction comes into play, and that's when you look at who makes the roster decisions. In theory, the GM does, but sometimes there's others involved that have too much of a voice, that makes too much noise, that makes the decisions. And let's tie this all back together with a bow. I hate the ownership group. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you next time.